All right, we got Larry here with your housing market update for the middle of June. Heading into Father's Day weekend, we got the U.S. Open going on at Pinehurst #2, one of my favorite courses to play. My son and I have played it twice in the last year, and man, just so much going on. And to all the fathers out there, have a happy Father's Day weekend. Enjoy your time with your family. Get out and do what you love to do with them. Barbecue, golf, surf, whatever. Just get out and enjoy time with your family. Let's get into the market update, all right? Hey, let's go. Big three. Prices steady, not going down. Inventory is up. It continues to go up. That's great news. And then rates. Great rate news this week. And so what is the headline news? Well, inflation continues to cool, people. Inflation, we had two reports showed inflation continuing to go down. Other big news, VA issues their temporary rules for buyer broker compensation. This is really big. We'll get into that. Fed surprises no one. The Fed met this week. They didn't cut the Fed funds rate, but the good news is they didn't raise it either, all right? And then we had initial jobless claims. Yeah, actually, some good news finally. We saw some movement. We'll show you that too. All right, so let's get into inflation. The big report this week came out on Wednesday. It was the Consumer Price Index, and both headline and the core dropped. All right, headline went from 3.4 to 3.3. Big thing there was car insurance, and then also gas prices coming down a little bit. Core, which strips out the fuel and food costs, or energy and food costs, that was down from 3.6 down to 3.4%. So that was great news. Market loved that a lot. All right, and one of the biggest reasons for the core to drop wasn't shelter. Believe it or not, it's car insurance. But finally, car insurance has come down and it's not hurting core inflation. The PPI, which is the wholesale price index, also came down. That was on Thursday. And that was actually a lot lower than expected. It was expected to be at 2.5%. It actually was down at 2.2%, which is really big news because the PPI components go into the PCE components, all right? Love our acronyms. PCE being the Personal Consumption Expenditure Report, which comes out that last week of June. And that's the one that the Fed really looks at to measure total inflation. So it's some really good inflation news, and that brought rates down. We'll get into that in a few. The other big thing was the NAR Buyer Broker Commission lawsuit. So the VA said that they would come out with by June 12th what their temporary rules would be for buyer broker compensation. Because if you've been following me or really not living under a rock and you're a veteran, veterans are not allowed to pay any buyer broker compensation. But now this temporary rule allows the veteran buyer to pay the buyer broker compensation or the commission. So let's break this down. One, it's temporary. There's so much going on with these new rules. They're probably going to change, so it's good. This gives the VA the opportunity to really make a quick change if they need to. All right, and let's get into this a little more, all right? Because I personally don't think this is good for veterans. While yes, veterans can now pay the buyer broker, this makes it more difficult for veterans. First off, all right, the payment cannot be rolled into the loan. Okay, so the veteran buyer is going to have to pay that commission. All right, now they may not, but they may have to. The other thing is now this payment must be computed in the ability of the veteran buyer's ability to pay at closing. All right, so now this becomes part of the qualification or the approval of the buyer. So that puts the veteran buyer, at a disadvantage there. And then they're encouraging the veteran buyer to negotiate with the buyer agent. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, but I also think that there are going to be some agents who take advantage of the buyer, and I think buyers don't like to negotiate. Buyers don't like to negotiate, period, but most don't. They want to work with somebody they trust is going to take good care of them, and I think this is not very good for the veteran. I really think it isn't. What is good for the veteran, though, is the seller may still, and you can see this here. As a reminder, VA does not treat the seller's payment of buyer broker charges as a seller concession. So basically, if the seller does give that concession, it's not going to count against the allowed concessions that a veteran buyer normally has. Matter of fact, the temporary variance announced by this circular does not prevent the seller of the home from paying the veteran's buyer broker charges. So the seller can still pay, not required to though. It's not, and it never has been required to, people, but it just has because that's the way we've always done it. So I tell you, the VA is disadvantaging the buyers in this whole situation because the beauty of the VA home loan benefit is that it is a no money down loan. And now you got the closing costs. You can roll the funding fee, which is a closing cost in the loan, but this buyer compensation cannot be rolled into the loan. I kind of understand why, but this is going to disadvantage veteran buyers. One, it's going to discourage them because now they think they have to have this money. And two, a seller may look elsewhere. So really, for veteran and for minority and lower income buyers, this could be bad. And I think I think a lot of people are seeing that, and I do think that these rules will change a little bit as we move forward. All right, so we'll move on to the next big thing, which was the Fed meeting. All right, the Fed did not raise the Fed funds rate; they didn't lower the Fed funds rate. And when they did the dot plot, really the consensus among the Fed members is that they'll probably do one cut, maybe two cuts this year. More than likely, just one. Probably not in July. Most likely in September. Unemployment, they're saying, hey, unemployment, Fed Chair Powell spoke, unemployment is still historically low, and it is. It just went up to 4%, which is great. We needed to see probably at 4.2% and then sustained before the Fed really says, all right, let's make that cut. They just want to see more, and they also want to see more movement south on the inflation report. So their decisions will be dependent on data, and that's the way it should be. It can't be emotion, can't be the pressure from our presidential nominees or our president himself. This has to be based on economic news. All right, so that's what we got there from the Fed. No surprise. Probably not a July cut, probably a September cut, if at all. All right, let's get into initial jobless claims. Finally, we get some good an uptick. You can see, looking on this chart, you can actually see initial claims. You can see it looks like it's going up, and it did. It went up to 242,000 that initial claims. That's the highest we've had in 10 months. And continuing claims, you really can't see. It still looks like a flat line. But up at continuing claims up at 1.82 million. That's the highest continuing claims since November 2021. And that's really just an indication of, hey, when you do lose a job, it's hard to get a job. So not a lot of people losing jobs, but when you do, harder to get a new one. All right, so let's look at VA rates. All right, VA rates, what you're seeing here, 2 weeks in a row of good economic news. Last week was jobs. This week was inflation. Now we're looking squarely. VA rates are below 6.5%. And they should stay here for the next couple weeks while we wait for the next really big piece of news to come out, which is the PCE. So good movement south, but we've seen this before. We haven't really been this low with rates since the beginning of April. So that's good to see as we head into that PCS push, the last push. June, July really is the last push for buyers typically before we get into the doldrums of summer. PCS moves are over, school start and stuff. So good news there. Let's look at the 10-year Treasury. You can see this nice drop last week. These big, these 5 bars of red. Then you saw them go up on Friday a little bit, and that was because the jobs report had this 272,000 number, which was probably skewed by the birth-death model. But we see this week. All right, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You saw the 10-year Treasury come down. We're now at the lowest we've been since the beginning of April, the 10-year Treasury. And really, there's no reason for that 10-year Treasury to drop any lower. We just need it to stay where it's at right now. And then hopefully we get some good news at the end of the month with the PCE. And we'll all be happy, and rates will get into the 5s, hopefully for VA. We can pray. Let's do that. Come on, let's get there. All right. And then let's take a look at the next big thing, and that would be, what does this mean? All right, what does this mean? Hey, applications were up. Applications for purchases and applications for refinances were up last week. Inventory is continuing to go up on the leeward side. Again, hey, rates came down, but they're still historically high. But this positive news will get some buyers off the couch and into homes, looking at homes, getting pre-approved. I know that in May, it's funny, I talked to people all over the country. Leads or applications were down all through the month of May. June, I already have more leads or applications in June than I had in May already, and we're not even at the halfway point of the month, people. Sellers, hey, value of homes is not the question. It's always about affordability for the buyer and that mortgage payment. Seller credits will help make that home that you're trying to sell more affordable. Don't forget that. Mililani, Kaneohe, Kailua, you're not having those problems though, all right? You can still sell without a seller concession, but hey, if you're sitting for a while, you're either overpriced, all right, or you need to make it more affordable. Hey, that's all I have for you guys this week. Have a happy Father's Day, but I'm thankful to be a father to my 3 lovely, amazing children, and I wish you all the best for yours too. All right, aloha.